And Hulk Smash. Hulk Smash.
A superpowered adrenaline blast, according to Pete Hammond of Hollywood.com.
Hollywood.com. That's the number one place for Hollywood, as far as I'm concerned.
Hollywood and Hollywood stars alike.
Yep. Today, first of all, this is the Macaw Podcast universe, and this is our second episode, and we take on series, whether it be universes, franchises, sequels, whatever that may be. And the rule of thumb I'm following is it's got to have 3.
Yeah, that's good.
But we're on our first one, which is Marvel Phase 1.
And the reason we're doing this is analyzing a franchise because that's fun to us, seeing if a movie fits into series, if it should be removed and forgotten from a series, if it should be redone.
Yeah, all of those things. And for the record, it seems like when you watch this movie and the following Marvel movies that Marvel itself has just kind of pretended like this movie doesn't exist.
That's okay.
You know what
Yeah.
But today it's The Incredible Hulk, starring Edward Norton,
Liv Tyler, William Hurt, Tim Roth. And this is not to be confused with, I believe it's pronounced Ong Lee's film from 2003, I believe. With Eric Bana. Yeah.
Which is a very strange movie. Have you seen that one?
Mm-mm.
So that's a strange one. I've only seen it once.
Wait, when did that one come out?
I believe it was 2003.
Mm-hmm.
I'll double check that, though. But that movie is a movie that fans really didn't like. Yeah, 2003, but critics liked and stuff.
Okay.
Because, at least according to Roger Ebert, there was a lot more interesting stuff going on with the characters.
Oh, okay.
And it was a little more concerned with, like, the father-daughter and then father-to-son dynamics in the movie than it was smashing things.
They should have just put these two movies together and it would have been a little bit better. A little bit better.
There you go. We're lounging on the couch, so sorry, Anthony, if some of these shots of the dialogue are a little shoddy. Okay, so we got this movie. It's the second in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And this is the one that I feel like whenever it's brought up, most of the time, most people are like, oh yeah, I don't know if I've seen that one. Or they just don't know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And
I had never seen it until today.
Okay.
First time.
I saw it in theaters, and I loved it. But prior to this, I was thinking of when we were going to rewatch it, I was like, there's no way I'm going to like this movie.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes you can tell when you look back. But then the first act of this movie, I was like, is this a really good movie? Because I liked how he was introduced. I liked what we'll get into specifics a little bit later. But I was like, oh, okay, maybe I will really like this. And then the second act started. Yeah. And it just slowly started to go downhill.
My expectations were pretty low from the beginning. For a little thing about Jordan, her expectations are always really low for any and every Marvel movie, with the exception of Guardians of the Galaxy, that they can do no wrong. But
they might now that they don't have James Gunn.
Yeah, they turned him into a villain. But expectations are always super low. Superheroes are not really my thing. Didn't grow up reading comic books unless you it was Garfield, Peanuts, Marmaduke, Calvin and Hobbes. That was my comics growing up. So going into this one, expectations were even lower than usual because it was so early on in the universe. Okay, so I was thinking I'll go over the people a little bit who are involved first. Are you fine with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So the movie was written by Zach Penn.
Yeah.
So his history is first sold his script, I think he was 23 years old, Last Action Hero. So he wrote Last Action Hero with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Movie?
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
So right from the gate, this guy writes a superhero movie about someone who's, not doesn't have comic
action movie.
Okay, an action movie, whatever. You know what I mean, though.
Yeah.
And was that the movie wasn't super successful, right?
No, it's a movie that my dad and I hold to this. It was completely misunderstood. Mm-hmm. Because the plot of the movie, if you don't know, is a kid gets sucked up into a literal movie, an action movie. Like he watches this action hero guy, and it's very meta, and it's kind of making, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of making fun of himself, and it's really a good, hilarious movie. I mean, it has some issues, but I think it was just completely misunderstood, and I think people are coming around to it now. I think it's sort of becoming a bit of a
cult classic.
Not yet,
okay,
but I think give it another 5 years, and maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so then the other notable movies that he's done, I didn't put the dates on these, so this is going to be out of order. He did X-Men 2, and this is writing. Wrote X-Men 2, Behind Enemy Lines, Inspector Gadget.
Oh, whoa. No.
The Avengers, the first Avengers.
He wrote the first Avengers?
Yeah. Or he's, credited screenplay by.
Okay.
And then Ready Player One.
Okay. Yes, I knew that one. That was where I recognized the name from.
So, a very accomplished action movie writer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then we have the director. He's French, so I'm going to pronounce this like I think it might be pronounced. Louis Leterrier. He is the Transporter 1 and 2 man.
Oh, okay. I don't know anything about this
big
guy.
Jason Statham man, probably. Who wouldn't?
Yeah, they call him the Statham man.
Yeah, already would have been a better Hulk choice than Edward Norton.
He's not weak enough.
I don't care.
You need some weakness.
He would have been better. And then he did Clash of the Titans, Now You See Me.
Oof.
The Brothers Grimsby.
Oh,
with
with Sacha Baron Cohen.
Yes, and whoever the other guy is.
Mark Strong?
Whoever, if that's him. Yeah, so
if I got that right, I'm so impressed with myself.
So there's another person who has a lot of action movies under his belt. I'm right. Also superhero stuff under his belt. And
has he done any other superheroes?
I think he had an oh, actually maybe not. Sorry.
Okay.
But anyway, but he's like he's dealt in movies that involve action and a lot of special effects.
Okay.
Did you see Clash of Titans?
No.
Yeah.
Was that a Percy Jackson movie?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay.
It's because that Percy Jackson is the young adult thing.
Yeah.
No, this is just about the Titans of them. And this was Sam Worthington's follow-up to Avatar.
Oh, yeah.
I remember seeing it and being
Not
very
good.
disappointed.
Not good.
Okay, but the face of the film, Edward Norton, big fan of him. I'll just say that now. Mm-hmm. Not a good choice for the Hulk, my opinion. But I'm a huge fan of Edward Norton. He's great.
Yeah, Edward Norton's great. I think let's dive into this a little bit before you jump into his career. I was thinking as it was going that I think because if we compare the two Hulks in the same universe, because if you haven't seen these movies, if you're watching them along with us for the first time, Edward Norton is not in any more of these. And Mark Ruffalo replaces him. And I think that there's something about Ruffalo. He can play it. He seems like a weaker and more damaged person. Mm-hmm. And I know in this movie you could argue that this is where he's getting the damage. But I never really felt like Norton really didn't want to be the Hulk or anything. And with Ruffalo in those movies, he really doesn't. He wants to get rid of the Hulk.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to be the Hulk.
Yeah, I think that Edward Norton works really well with subtle acting, like close-up shots of him acting. But this is an action movie more than anything.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't look more out of place to me.
Mm-hmm.
And even literally in the beginning of the movie, being someone who's living in Brazil, he couldn't look more like a tourist. He couldn't stick out more like a sore thumb than he did.
Yeah.
And not just because he was an American in Brazil, but he he just wasn't convincing me that he was really trying to be elusive,
Right.
like ever.
Right.
But as other things, like one of his really first notable thing that he did was Primal Fear. Did you ever see that movie?
I've never seen that movie.
That movie's freaking awesome.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say too much because you should watch it. Listeners should watch it. His acting is so good in that movie.
Yeah.
And he's really young. So he's playing like a kid. I mean, he's not a kid. He's like 20 something. But, he's like a kid playing a very naive character.
Okay.
But is he? Question mark.
Oh, wow.
And then you have American History X, 1998.
He's great in that movie.
I've never seen that. I've always wanted to see that. And then Fight Club the year after that.
Okay.
Red Dragon, 2002. I remember him being really good in that movie.
That's we could do the Hannibal series at some point.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's a Hannibal movie. Great movie. I love that movie.
Is that the second one or the third one?
I don't know. I haven't seen all of them.
Okay.
But that you got Ray Fiennes. You got Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Philip C. is in there?
He's the guy he's burning in that chair.
I've never seen it.
He doesn't burn in a chair.
I've only seen Silence of the Lambs.
Then he's in The Italian Job, which I don't remember. And then The Illusionist is the last big thing.
You don't remember him in The Italian Job?
No, I don't.
Oh, because he's the bad guy in the movie. He's the guy that they try to break into his house and they're gonna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's the guy they're stealing the money from.
Okay.
Because at the beginning of the movie, he turns on Donald Sutherland, shoots him in the ice.
That was at a time when you gave me about 30 movies to watch.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't remember a lot of those movies.
Okay, whatever.
So then The Illusionist, 2006, was the last big thing that he did before Hulk.
No, I remember Hulk.
And then let me look something up really quick because I feel like, The Illusionist came out the same year as The Prestige. And I remember, I was only in we were only in 6th or 7th grade, but it was like, you either see The Illusionist or The Prestige. Which one's better? And I never saw The Illusionist, but I remember people really liking it.
I've never seen The Illusionist.
Yeah.
I didn't see either.
Oh, you didn't?
No, it took me a while before I saw The Prestige. I saw The Prestige after I had seen Inception.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I saw it before that.
Me and Micah Ratcliffe, we went through and watched all of Christopher Nolan's movies. He was the first director I saw all his movies.
I think me too.
Yeah, because I was like, this is so special. Oh, we're holding hands now.
Yeah, so...
You want to talk producers?
I don't have much on producers because it's really just the same people from last time.
Well, we have Gail Ann Hurd on this one.
Okay.
So we have Avi Arad, who also did Iron Man, and we have Kevin Feige, of course, and then Gail Ann Hurd. So that's all I have there until I get into some of the notes.
Yeah. Just to finish this up really quick, and then you have Liv Tyler, who is the love interest.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Who I realize, Micah helped me realize, maybe isn't very good at acting.
Yeah, I don't think she's great. She does she whisper talks all the time, and I think she's great as Arwen.
She's really good at remembering people's names in her movies.
Okay, go further with this.
Just Bruce, all the time, and then Aragorn, all the time.
Okay.
And then so she was in. I think her first big break. I've never seen this movie, but I've been seeing a lot of things about it recently. Empire Records, 1995. That Thing You Do, Armageddon.
Oh yeah, she's in That Thing You Do.
Yeah,
she's pretty good in that.
Yeah, she is.
Maybe she is a good actress.
She's in Armageddon, which
try not to move that around because you can hear it on the mic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Armageddon, and then The Strangers. Oh no, Lord of the Rings, then The Strangers, and The Strangers is a really cool thriller.
Yeah,
really good thriller.
I know that's yeah.
And then you have Tim Roth, who is a really great actor. Mm-hmm. I think he does do well in this movie, but I think that the movie was not directed well. So I think performances.
Flamin' hot opinion.
I think that his performance wasn't as great as it could have been, or was just not showcased very well. Okay, and the last big person in the movie is William Hurt, who you may know from Dark City. He was in a Dune miniseries in 2000.
There was a miniseries?
Yeah. And then he was in Artificial Intelligence, The Village, A History of Violence.
He's great in The Village.
Yes.
We talked about that, you and me.
Privately off mic.
Privately off mic.
And then A History of Violence with Viggo Mortensen, and Into the Wild was the last thing that he did before.
Before this?
This movie.
Okay. So then I want to cover quickly, the music was done by Craig Armstrong. And do you remember the music in this movie? Neither did I. Yeah, it was unmemorable and uninteresting. This movie,
there was one cool part.
Okay.
That part where I said the organs were cool here.
Yeah, like when he changed into
that
Hulk.
scene when they're at the college and he breaks through the bridge and there's these organs playing and there's lightning shooting behind him and it looks like a horror movie.
Yeah.
And it was very, very well done.
This was released June 13th, 2008. So this is the next month after Iron Man came out. Mm-hmm. And then, so they regained, I believe Marvel regained the rights to Hulk in 2006. They hired Norton in April 2007, and they filmed from July to November in 2007. You want to take a stab at what the budget of the movie was?
That's a different podcast.
Oh, you're right. It's $150 million.
Okay.
The box office was $263,427,551. So, oh man, we are drinking LaCroix and it's making us burp. Yeah. So the box office, that's not super great. Mm-hmm. $263 million with a $150 million budget. I mean, it's still successful, but it's not. It's just not super good.
They probably
especially
wanted
compared
a lot more.
to Iron Man, which had come out a month before, and I think that grossed like 6 or.
Do you think that it should have been released later than a month? Was Iron Man, you think, still in theaters?
Oh, I'm sure it was still in theaters.
That's kind of weird. Oh wait, but it's not. It's different studios.
No.
No.
Well, I mean, I hope I put it in, but maybe I didn't.
So if it wasn't in a way that then they were competitors.
Well, yeah, I guess the other one was not Universal, but it was still Marvel Studios, so
yeah.
They were both Marvel Studios. So the screenwriter from Ang Lee's Hulk movie wanted to make a sequel, but there were these timelines that weren't met, so Avi Arad, the producer, confirmed Marvel Studios would make The Incredible Hulk on January 18th, 2006, and that Universal would distribute. Marvel wanted to stray from Ang Lee's Hulk because of how fans didn't like it. Even though Norton does not have a writing credit, he did do a pass on the script and changed a lot of stuff.
Which is something he's known to do on most of the movies he works on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Initially, that third producer we were talking about, Gale and Hurd, said that it was going to be a kind of sequel reboot-ish. 70 minutes of the movie, mostly dealing with the origin, were cut out.
Oh.
I that's kind of a weird thing to say because I can't imagine that they originally planned the movie to be 3 hours and 10 minutes long. So I don't know why it says 70 minutes cut out.
Maybe it was like 70 pages and...
yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a weird... No, I'm not totally sure. But Norton and Leterrier had a dispute with the producers over the final running time. They wanted it to be 135 minutes, while the producers wanted it to be under 2 hours. This was made public, and rumors spread that Norton, quote, made it clear he won't cooperate with publicity plans if he's not happy with the final product. Norton dismissed this, quote, our healthy process of collaboration, which is and should be a private manner, was misrepresented publicly as a dispute seized on by people looking for a good story and has been distorted to such a degree that it risks distracting from this film itself, which Marvel, Universal, and I refuse to let happen. It has always been my firm conviction that films should speak for themselves and that knowing too much about how they were made diminishes the magic of watching them. So he would hate this podcast.
Yeah. Not much magic in the movie, though.
But yeah, I don't know if you know this, but there was a lot of after this movie came out and when Mark Ruffalo was cast, there's a lot of like the real reason Norton left the Hulk, and there's a lot of that stuff, and I just couldn't find anything concrete, so I didn't want to just talk about rumors. But yeah, so a lot of this movie was kind of their idea of a course correction for where Ang Lee's Hulk went, quote, wrong.
Okay.
And then there were plans for a sequel with the director and Norton, but they were scrapped. And Norton was initially interested, but stated he wanted to be more diverse in his career.
Okay.
So that's what he claims. I don't know what the truth is on why he didn't come back for a next one. It could have been
he didn't want to be a franchise guy,
or it could have been he didn't get enough money, or it sounds like there was some problems with the studios, according to him. But,
yeah.
Who's to say what the truth in the matter is?
Mm-hmm.
And that covers all the production notes that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like we're ready to talk about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, as we have said, with this franchise, because of how odd it is, there are series within series. So technically, this is the first movie.
Yeah.
And it's one of no other movies. But it is the second in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So as far as how that fits in with the MCU, what do you think?
In terms of how it fits in with just the franchise?
Or should we talk about that after we've talked about the movie?
Let's talk about it after.
Okay. I'm jumping the gun. I'm too excited to talk about
I'm going to try
that.
to not be too nitpicky about things, because when when I'm watching a movie and I get to a point where I'm like, okay, I decided that I don't like it, it's really hard for me to not just pick everything apart. And I feel like pretty early on I was like, what's going on here? Mm-hmm. And then, so I'm going to try not to be too nitpicky. So, the opening credits is coinciding with showing you how he became Hulk.
Yes.
Which I thought was a good way to show exposition. I actually am not a fan of visually how it was done.
No.
It was just too oversaturated and still really confusing.
Yeah, I think the problem with it now, a lot of the problems with the movie that I see is it is operating off of the fact that another Hulk movie came out 5 years earlier. It truly is.
Yeah.
So when you see that opening sequence, they're just saying okay, you already know this. Let's just get it out of the way so that we can start the story. Whereas if they made it even 5 years later, they probably would have done a whole origin section
whatever they
of
wanted.
the movie.
Yeah.
And that could be that, quote, 70 minutes that was cut from the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it makes sense, but it doesn't age well because now we don't see the movies that close together.
Right.
So.
Or at all. I've never seen the other one.
Yeah.
I've never seen, and I didn't know specifically how he became the Hulk. So I'm seeing that and I'm like, okay, it's clear that he did it to himself. Mm-hmm. Experiment gone wrong.
Yeah.
But it's at the same time, it's like, I still need more information. Why was he testing something on himself? And this is, coming from someone who's never read the comics either.
Yeah.
So that's where I got pretty confused.
Well, what I didn't like is I agree with all the things you said. And I think it doesn't age, but also, so it does his little origin, and then that's when I feel like it should stop, and then the movie starts. Mm-hmm. But then, remember, it goes to him looking at, I almost said Arwen, to Liv Tyler in the bed at the hospital, and then the dad, kicks him out.
Yeah.
And then he leaves, and then he runs away, and the music even changed, so you're like, man, there's 2 acts in this opening 1 minute montage. This is annoying. Get this out of here. Just start. I just wanted them to start the movie with him in Brazil. Yeah.
I think that would be more interesting. And then just kind of pick it up from just explaining things kind of from there. Because Tim Roth was, he was ended up being the main bad guy or villain. However, he was in the beginning used as a vehicle for exposition because William Hurt's character, who was the general, was explaining a lot to him of why he was this way. Because Tim Roth was like, it was green and it was big. We got to find Bruce so that he can tell us where it is.
Yeah.
And it's that's kind of where the viewer's at in a way. And William Hurt's like, okay, well, that's him. Uh-huh. That's where you could explain a little bit better or more than just cut out that first part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. But I will. Oh yeah, another thing. This trope, I hope it's over. I think it's over, but I don't know. Is when these movies they like all any of these movies where they have a font come up on the screen and it does that weird typing noise.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've never heard that in real life. So where did that come from and why is it happening?
Yeah. I don't have the answer to that question.
And they did it, but they only did it one time in the movie. So
Really?
it was kind of weird.
I
They did
didn't
it at the
notice that.
beginning. Or no, they did it at the no incidents thing. So they did it like 3 times in the movie.
Okay.
But there were other slides where they didn't use it.
Yeah.
So what was with that? So there's a point where Bruce Banner goes to a karate guy or something like that, and he's learning how to breathe to keep his anger down.
Uh-huh.
I think that was very cool.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That's when I was thinking maybe I'm wrong about this movie, and it is really good.
Yeah, it was interesting. I do think that I just thought it was so hilarious just how much he just looked so weird in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Just Edward Norton, Bruce Banner, whatever. It's just like I was not convinced that he was hiding here. It looked like he was on vacation to me.
Yeah.
And he was just being a tourist. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I didn't notice that. So, but you're kind of more of a fashion person anyway.
It's not the clothes they chose. It has nothing to do with that.
I think it has a lot to do with like the clothes they chose.
Yeah, you're probably right. But yeah, so all that being said, so the first time you see him turn into the Hulk, I thought that was great.
Yeah, kind of in the shadows.
Didn't really show him too much. Yeah, it was like a horror movie.
Was caused by a Stanley cameo, we must say.
Yes.
So he cuts his finger at a bottling plant, Bruce Banner, and his blood goes down, lands in a bottle of soda, and an old man gets it in the United States, and he takes a swig, and he goes, "Oh boy," or something like that. And then that's the Stanley cameo. And then
he gets sick. Because it's radiation.
And then General Ross, who is the
William Hurt,
now they know where he's at, which
yes.
is a little confusing, but we can take that leap
throw
of
him
logic.
that bone.
Yeah, we'll throw him that bone.
But that's the only one we have.
Yeah, now we're out of bones.
But yeah, so they find him, they chase him into the bottling plant. The chase scene was very cool.
Yeah, remember there was that guy who was chasing Bruce Banner, and he just fell off a building. And the way they shot it, it was genuinely kind of shocking.
We gasped.
You slapped me in the chest, and you went,
yeah.
And popcorn went flying.
Yep. It's still everywhere.
Yes, and you could tell, I gotta double check this, but this is a very post-Bourne Ultimatum movie. Which, have you seen the Bourne Ultimatum?
Very long time ago. I think on our high school class trip.
Oh, we only watched The Identity, but...
We never watched the other ones?
No.
No.
Well, the Bourne Ultimatum came out the year before, so I would imagine they were probably more inspired by the previous two movies because they would have already shot the stuff. But in Ultimatum and I think in Supremacy, there's like some rooftop chase scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was watching that, I just thought, oh yeah, this is they watched that movie and were like, oh, we have to do the Bourne Ultimatum or the Bourne thing.
And a lot of movies have done that since then.
Yeah, well, whenever we do the Bourne series, we'll have to talk about how that has like basically changed action cinema, and it's taken until the last, I don't know, probably 2 years to where action movies are starting to have longer cuts.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Because you have your Mission Impossibles and your John Wicks that are bringing back actually good action.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
But
we're going to scream about that.
Yeah, we are going to scream. I scream, you scream, we all scream for ice cream.
So, so they don't catch Bruce. He gets out.
Mm-hmm.
He runs to Guatemala because he wakes up as Bruce. And let's just say, so to the listener, Brazil is in South America. Guatemala is in Central America. He ran far.
Hulk can run far.
Yeah.
He can run thousands of miles.
And then from Guatemala, he ended up in Virginia. Don't really remember how he got there.
He hitched a couple rides and walked.
Yeah.
That was the montage. And that was Bruce. Hulk went from Brazil to Guatemala. Bruce went from Guatemala to Virginia.
Yes. And he, what was his, oh yeah, because the important thing is when he was in Brazil, he was talking to someone on the computer who was trying to help him control the thing inside of that turns him into the Hulk and like eradicate it. So he's like, I'm going to go find this person and we're going to finish it together so that I don't have to be this monster anymore.
Right.
And
Which,
well, I should say that the one thing that this movie, the story is super interesting because it is about him not wanting and not willing to face what he's become. Mm-hmm. And it's not about this person's doing something bad and I have to stop them. He's trying to stop himself.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. And then you have Tim Roth, who is like in charge of taking him down. And he's like, inject me with everything you have that makes me a superhuman. He wants what Bruce has.
Yeah.
And so it's this cool contrast. It's just done in this like such a boring way, unfortunately.
Yeah. Because I think we talked about this when it ended. The arc of Bruce Banner is interesting and I think works. Mm-hmm. Where he does not want to be Hulk. And then by the end of the movie, he comes to grip with he has to be Hulk. Yeah. But he's not happy about it. Although he smirks at the camera at the end of the movie when he becomes Hulk again, which I thought was very stupid.
Because he's a bad boy. I don't know.
But I like that arc. I think that's an interesting, good, well-written arc. But I just think I figured it was fine. Hey, everybody. We're a new podcast. And with a new podcast, you got to give us a couple of breaks. I'm talking Kit Kats. Something happened and we lost about 7 minutes. So we're going to jump back in and we're going to try and cover those 7 minutes. But if there's a weird break in the dialogue here, it's because the computer crashed. So
we're back.
I looked back. I was talking about Bruce Banner's arc and how I like it, but I wish that there was less of General Ross and less of that whole idea and more of Abomination, Tim Roth's character, and maybe an allegory for his drug use, which he isn't really using. He's trying to get to become the best super serum soldier person. So it would be cool if maybe they made that more of a drug addict type of scenario.
Yeah.
So I think that wraps up that idea.
Yeah.
We'll see when we listen back and are maybe confused. But an odd thing that we noticed is there's an actor in the movie called his
So his name is Martin Starr. He is best known for being in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Do you remember his name in that
Guilfoyle.
show? Guilfoyle. Hilarious.
And
also in Superbad.
I don't know.
I'm going to verify while you talk.
Okay. So here's the thing. He is in Incredible Hulk, and he is in it for one scene, and in that one scene, he doesn't have any dialogue, and no one refers to him by a name. Okay? But he is also in Spider-Man Homecoming as one of the teachers for Peter Parker. So I looked it up and I thought, oh, that'd be funny if he graduated from Culver University on the computer when he was with Bruce
Freaks
Banner.
Freaks and
Geeks, okay. Yeah. But it'd be funny if, he graduated from Culver University and became a teacher in New York and taught Peter Parker. But according to the Marvel Cinematic Universe wiki, he portrayed Amadeus Cho in The Incredible Hulk, and then he portrayed Roger Harrington in Spider-Man Homecoming, which is so stupid. It should just be the same character, because there's no reason for it not to be.
Why do they specify his name in the Hulk when we looked it up on IMDb and it just said student?
That's what I don't understand. I wish I did understand.
Big missed opportunity.
Yeah. And it's not like he's going to be... I mean, I guess maybe he forgot he was in the movie. Because it could easily be overlooked, but it's strange.
Yeah.
It's very strange to me.
Yeah. He doesn't seem like the guy who would.
Well, and
as
this,
if I know who that is.
Maybe this furthers my point that the movie is... I mean, it kind of is just a forgotten movie from the whole universe. Like, they don't really acknowledge the existence. They don't really reference the events that much. Really, the only thing that ties it together is the super serum and then Tony Stark's appearance at the end of the movie. Because General Ross doesn't come in ever again.
No.
So, yeah. I think, the love story didn't work. I just don't buy it. I don't buy it that he comes back and there's no baggage and it's okay.
Yeah, one thing I was just thinking about was I wonder if me and people like me who have never read Marvel comics are at a disadvantage on some of these little things to be like, oh, well, if you know, in the comics that's like really dived in more or something
right.
about the relationship. And
yeah, I think that there probably is a lot of subtext and things that are referenced that we're missing, but a movie has to function on its own without the source material, I think.
Yeah, and if you're focusing so much, if you're, I guess, catering so much to the people who know all the lore of it, you're alienating a lot of people who are new to this.
Yeah.
And they just can't relate at that point.
And I think there is something... So, for example, do you remember in The Fellowship, there's that scene where they're trying to go through the mountains?
Before going to the Mines of Moria?
Yeah, and you see Legolas, and everyone else is struggling through the snow, and he's walking on it. So as a viewer of the movie, I just didn't really think much of that. But after I read the book and found out that elves can walk on snow, I was like, oh, that's a nice little nod, but it doesn't add or detract from my viewing of the movie, whether I've read the book or not. Well, I mean, I think it adds something if you have read the book, but if
I remember,
you haven't, you don't lose anything.
I remember watching that before I read the book, and I was just like, okay. It wasn't like, why can he do it? Because I think at that point in the movie, they've already established enough that elves can do a lot of things other people can't.
Yeah, totally. And so...
But this isn't Lord of the Rings, this is The Incredible Hulk. So what you get from The Incredible Hulk at the last part of the movie is a very intense fight scene between two monsters that is maybe the most boring part of the movie, as well as I think it's just, I don't know, it's like, okay, so all superhero movies have to do this. The showdown scene. Yeah,
so far of these two movies that we've watched in this rewatch in this series, the weakest part of the movie is the third act fight. And I think part of it is that there's two ways to look at it. So first off, there is like, if you go time and place, we hadn't seen as many superhero movies, so it was much more exciting, I think.
Yeah.
But when you look at it now, it's just kind of boring. And the effects are so dated that you're just seeing this because what Tim Roth turns into is...
It's an abomination.
It is abomination. I mean, that's his character name, but it's also just... It's not even cool. It's just ugly. Like, it's just this ugly gray blob. Orc-like
thing. His body grows really big, but his head stays the same size.
Yeah.
It's like his brain couldn't evolve with his body.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
And so you have this big fight, and there's a couple of parts of the fight that I think work and are interesting.
But it's just so long.
Like when he rips the car apart and he's smashing him with each side, and the car that he's smashing with him with is like falling apart. But overall, you're just watching it, and you're kind of like, okay, I guess the movie's almost over because it can't get bigger than this. And I don't really know how to fix that problem, but I think about like 2014's Godzilla, and that's a monster movie. And I think a lot of people would argue against me on this because there's a lot of people that don't like this about the movie. but they focused on the characters more.
Yeah.
And there was some big fight scenes, but in my opinion, for the most part, that last battle scene where Godzilla's fighting the Mothra, I think, every time it showed Godzilla, it was for a purpose.
Yeah.
So it wasn't just showing him break stuff, because we've seen it before. It's not interesting.
Yeah, and that's something that Garth Edwards...
Yeah.
I think he does really well in his films.
Yeah.
It's just being very sparse with
very selective with what he...
Yeah.
Is that his name? That sounds wrong, but it's...
Isn't it Garth?
Gareth Edwards.
Gareth. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. And I think some people would argue about just superhero movies in general is like, well, that's a superhero movie. Mm-hmm. They just have big fight scenes. That's what it comes down to. And I mean, that's probably something that it's just something I'm just generally not really into. I'm more into the character development and the story. I mean, I'm not against an action scene. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
But when it's this long and this intense, and they're just like, obviously, you could just watch that scene and you're like, how did hundreds of civilians not die?
Yeah.
They're being thrown through buildings. Cars are being thrown around with people inside them.
Yeah.
And then just all of the building and car just damage to Harlem. That's where they were, right?
Yeah.
Right? It's just like, I mean, it's just like, I don't even know what to say about it. Well, it's insane.
And this is a Hulk movie. So I understand that there is...
Hulk has to break things.
He has to break things. He has to Hulk smash. He's got to do the sonic clap. Like, it is Hulk.
Which confused me a lot.
Yeah, he does a sonic clap, and I made fun of Jordan for not knowing what that was. But it's not very obvious if you are not familiar with the source material.
Yeah, he just put a fire out by clapping. I mean, knowing that it's a sonic clap, it's like, oh, okay, that's totally fine. Cool. But prior to knowing that,
there's
I was just
not really a reason for it.
Sure, I guess he can do that.
But, I mean, my argument for anyone who's like, but it's Hulk, he's got to smash, is, again, I would say look at that Godzilla movie where there's tons of smash, there's tons of carnage, but it serves a purpose, so I find it more interesting.
Yeah.
So this third act I just think is pretty boring.
Yeah.
And it falls apart. And then another thing to say about superhero like fight scenes is, again, there are ways to do it. We've even seen in the Marvel universe, as you look forward, within their own universe, there are movies that they have done where the action scenes are just awesome.
Yeah.
And then there are movies where, like, for example, I think Black Panther is a really cool, one of their better movies, but for the most part, the action isn't that interesting.
Yeah.
But the story is so good that I don't really care that... Well, I mean, most of the action's good, but the last sequence where they're fighting is kind of like, okay, this is a little bit boring.
I think what they do well with their action stuff is that's like a war movie.
Yeah.
So I like... Yeah, something I was thinking of was... with this Hulk movie, it's like everywhere that he turned to the Hulk and he fought them, and I understand part of it was he was basically trapped wherever he was at, and he turned into this thing. Yeah, I get that, but it's like I feel like I wish that the settings were different, so that it wasn't at the school or in downtown Harlem. Like, I wish it was a little bit more remote, because I think it would be more interesting because it'd be about the action. It wouldn't be about this bridge being blown apart by him. That might be something that's just totally irrelevant to the conversation. It doesn't matter. But just visually speaking, it's just there was so much to look at, so much going on. It's like I kind of want to just see Hulk and
like a
these
sparse
tanks.
Area. Well, that's why I kind of liked the first scene at the university, because it was just an open
It was an open field, yeah.
And it showcased like what Hulk could do. But it was too long. It was too long,
but one thing they did really well
that were interesting
that you were pretty confused about for a second was, I mean, before the scene, there's lightning and you see this thunderstorm approaching. That was pretty cool visually, just to see this lightning off in the distance. It makes him look like a monster. Yeah. He actually reminds me of like the werewolf. Yeah. A werewolf character or story. And then I like kind of like at the end of the scene when something catches on fire, like immediately it starts raining, like pretty conveniently. Yeah. You were like, oh, it's raining. But it's like, but they established that there was a thunderstorm coming. Yeah. I'm not saying that the rain looked good because it was it was like, oh, cool, it was noon, and now it's 6 p.m. That's what it looked like.
They did the classic, the next couple scenes were the classic Hollywood rain, where you can tell that they're shooting outside in the daytime and they have a rain machine.
Yeah.
Which I don't mind.
What I liked about that was it was all in a way visually pleasing.
Yeah.
To that overcast sky and everything. Mm-hmm. I liked that.
Yeah. But back to my other point. So there are ways to do action sequences, because I think of, again, within their own universe, I'm just going to stick in there to prove my point. Winter Soldier, I don't know if you remember that one, which is a Phase 2 movie. Is
that with Robert Redford?
Yes.
That one's cool.
That one has crazy action sequences.
Yes, someone gets thrown into the turbine of a plane. I'll say it every time.
But they do like that elevator sequence where he's fighting all those guys, and the action in that movie is like really, really interesting.
Yeah.
And so there are ways to do it. You just have to think outside the box.
Yeah.
So
I think that...
But I think this movie's a victim of being a first movie, mm-hmm. and a movie where they probably were like, okay, in 2003 Hulk came out and he looked okay, but now we can make him look realistic.
Yeah.
And so they're like, let's do that.
And what I think is, similarly to Iron Man, I do like that this story was very self-contained. Yes, but it didn't seem like it, because so many people were involved.
Mm-hmm.
And in Iron Man, a lot of people were involved, but it really came down to him and Jeff Bridges.
Yeah.
That's what it came down to. This movie, really self-contained. I love that it's just him fighting himself most of the time. Yes. That's super interesting. There's not like someone who's trying to destroy the earth that he needs to go kill. It's not about that. But it's not about him and another person. It's about him, Tim Roth, William Hurt, Liv Tyler. It's about a lot of people still.
Yeah. So it would be nicer if it was a little cleaner.
That's what I think. Yeah.
But yeah, and I think there were little spots in the movie. I believe I'm using this term correctly, but since you didn't recognize it, I'm not totally certain. But I wish there was the movie, like I could see a version of the Hulk. It wouldn't be this movie, and it wouldn't be for the Marvel universe, but a like body horror Hulk movie.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of body horror being like, think of John Carpenter's The Thing or something along those lines, where it's like a man struggling, really does not want to be the Hulk, and when he turns into it, it's like really cool practical effects, really scary, mm-hmm. and then, you know, when you have the Abomination, like he has those spikes in his back and stuff, and if you showcase that sort of thing and hid the monsters more, that would be a movie preferentially I would like more. Now, I understand that's not really what Hulk is.
Right.
But that, to me, would be a much more interesting take on the character.
Yeah, I agree.
But so as far as how does this fit in, because this is what our podcast is.
What's the next one?
The next movie is Iron Man 2.
Okay.
But what do we think about how this movie fits into the larger framework?
So we can consider the other movies at this point?
Yes, I think so.
Just looking at it as a whole. Forget about it.
Okay, yeah. I think especially because he's recast.
Uh-huh.
I
saw in the trivia that the director, sometimes how true is the trivia?
Yeah.
But it said that originally the director wanted Mark Ruffalo, but he was unable to do it.
That doesn't seem right.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting if it's true.
It is interesting if it's true. But I think because you don't have the same actor, because they don't reference these events, and Hulk, like Bruce Banner, Hulk, they never talk about Betsy Ross again.
That's what I was wondering about.
So, I mean, I think really you can just skip this movie for the larger framework, and it has really no consequences. Because they kind of, if I remember right, in Avengers, there's kind of a whole segment of the movie that's dedicated to basically reintroducing the character.
Yep.
So,
which they had to do because it was a new person.
Frankly, if they hadn't shot the Tony Stark scene, I don't even know if they would consider this Marvel.
Yeah, it's the only thing that ties it in. And in the beginning, they mentioned Stark Industries and
they mentioned S.H.I.E.L.D., but those are all like things in the comics.
Yeah.
So they could have just gotten away with it.
Yeah.
But by the way, there's a funny thing at the end of the movie. It's kind of a bad joke, but when Tony Stark comes in and he talks to General Ross and he goes, "I see you were messing around with the super soldier serum," and he goes, yeah, we were. And then Tony Stark says, I prefer to keep mine on ice because Captain America's been frozen for 50 years.
Oh.
I think
you want to
that's the
know
reference
another
there.
bad joke in this movie is when they're in New York City in a taxi and the taxi driver's driving insane. And Liv Tyler's like, they get out of the car and Liv Tyler's like screaming in his face, just screaming and like cussing him out. And then she like kicks the car as it drives off. And what does Edward Norton say?
He's like, I have some very useful techniques for managing your anger that might
I was
help
like,
you.
no, you can't do that. That's so bad.
Yeah, it was a dumb joke.
There's another really bad joke too. There were a couple of jokes that were just kind of facepalm jokes.
Yeah. Yes. And for the viewer at home or listener at home, if you don't know what a facepalm joke is, put your palm in front of your face and then just kind of slam your palm into your head and go, ugh. And then you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that it's just best to forget it.
Yeah. I think as a solo movie,
yeah,
I think it works fine. It's like a 5 out of 10, I think. Like, it's not offensively bad, but it's not good.
Yeah, I get that.
But then...
It's so okay that it's pretty boring.
Yeah. I do think I'm giving it a little more credit because I think the first act of the movie is really good.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
And if the rest of the movie had kind of continued with that promise, it would have been a much better movie. And I am happy that it was not as unenjoyable as I was expecting it to be. After all these years and how many people have talked about it and how it's just a forgotten Marvel movie, I thought that we'd watch it and be like, I know we were kind of rolling our eyes at the end, but I thought we were going to be like, oh, how are we ever going to finish this movie?
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't that bad.
No, it didn't get to that point.
But, I mean, so far, if we were to rank them, this one's the worst of the 2 movies they've released.
Easily.
But, yeah, I think it doesn't really... It is kind of nice in a world building sense because they do bring in Tony. They do talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. a couple of times.
Nick Fury is mentioned.
But they don't spend too much time... like trying to set things up, which I liked. They just kind of told this story, and it lives in that world, which is, in my opinion, good world building.
Yes, and just never forget that this movie is a super-powered adrenaline blast.
Yeah. Do you remember you opened it with that?
Yeah,
right?
and I'm closing with it.
Oh, okay. So we're done.
We're closing. What else do you have to say?
No, that was really it. So next week we're doing Iron Man 2. So watch along with us. When we recorded this, it's available on Hulu. It might not be anymore. I don't know.
I thought you meant our podcast is available on Hulu.
No. Iron Man 2 is available on Hulu, so if you want to watch that before you listen to us talk about it, you can. My little preliminaries here. I think I remember loving the movie, but it's often cited as like Marvel trying to set up too many things.
Okay,
and
I've never
like
seen this one.
Them kind of trying to figure out how to make their universe. It like starts here.
Yeah.
Really. But I think it'll be good because I remember liking it. So we'll see. I might have a totally different opinion when we watch it. But yeah, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.